Okay, so in the previous two episodes, I talked about how you can practice stripping away unnecessary motion, about how you can relax your body to be able to overcome antagonistic muscle. I've also talked about how you can use weighted objects to help you learn how to become smoother, because it forces you to have to use your whole body in order to be able to move and control the weight, which is changing really the way your body moves. And of course, using weights you don't have to use a lot of weight, of how I can transition from one root point to the next as smoothly as possible as I'm controlling my equilibrium. I also talked about how you can push from the root and keeping your body as smooth and as coordinated as possible. How you can hit with tremendous force and tremendous power because you're removing as much unnecessary motion, and by moving smoothly when you're practicing, you're also ensuring that you always have as much of your body behind it as possible. So the other thing that you have to understand is, people talk about the kinetic chain, and that's all good stuff. The problem with the kinetic chain, though, is it's not a mechanical kind of thing like the way a lot of people present it. The human body is very organic, and so you don't want to think of it as, kind of like, a mechanical system. I mean, obviously there's a mechanical advantage, but the reason for that is because then it locks your mind into this idea that you cannot hit from different positions with power. The truth is, as long as you are controlling your equilibrium, as long as you are not creating unnecessary tension in the body, your body will align itself to strike with the power you need wherever you're hitting. And of course, as long as it's within the natural range of motion of your body. So when you want to practice other skills, you first have to kind of have an idea of the range of motion in your own body. We all have a certain range of motion, and you never want to fight outside of the range of motion of your body, because there are things you can't do outside the range of motion because you just have no power out there. It's just that simple. The other thing is, when I want to develop other skills and I want to be as smooth as possible, I do a thing we call deconstruction. And it's not our thing, it's how things work. So when I'm doing deconstruction, and I just use striking for an example, I think about what the end state is I want to achieve. What's the end state? I punch people in the face so hard, that they're gonna want to die just so I'll stop punching them in the face. Okay, so as I'm hitting, I'm thinking about the motion, and then what I do is I actually work backwards from that strike or whatever the case may be. So I know I want to be here, but what has to happen before that? Well, my body has to be moving toward it in an efficient manner. Well, what has to happen before that? Well, I got to be pushing off the root of my foot because I need to get my mass and accelerate my mass as much as possible. And it doesn't have to be a lot of movement. It's just more of a push, but you have to feel yourself push off the ground. The other thing is, and I want to point out, so I don't forget, as usual, when I'm pushing from the root, and I got to make sure I say these things because what's intuitive to me is not intuitive to other people, and I get that, and it just sometimes confuses people. I'm not hopping in the air. I'm not doing this kind of thing. I'm actually pushing horizontal to the ground. Okay, you look people in track or any sport in particular, but especially track and field, when a sprinter comes out of the blocks, his most important thing getting out of the blocks, besides obviously getting off the dime as quickly as possible, is pushing as hard as he can or she can and maintaining that kind of horizontal force. The reason is, the moment their force starts going in this direction, they're actually losing time. So they want to push, and they want to get as much horizontal force as possible so they can get up to max velocity. Makes sense to me. So that's what I'm actually doing. When I'm here pushing, it's not a hopping kind of thing like I see some people, when they do this stuff, they're actually hopping. So I'm pushing, and I get this horizontal force. So then I reverse everything like I was talking about. And so from here, and I actually slow down, and I'm very deliberate from here to here feeling myself push, feeling myself drop into that forward leg as I push, right? And I get this feeling. And what I'm doing is as I'm pushing, I'm exaggerating so you can see it, as I'm pushing, what's going on is there's also a deceleration, a rapid deceleration in the forward leg. Because when I drop into that leg, the ground's going to push back with equal force, and I want that force. I want to capture all that because it adds to my power and it multiplies the amount of force. So again, as much horizontal force as possible. Then as I decelerate, I'm trying to time the strike with that rapid deceleration. And you just got to play around with it because everybody's timing is a little different. The key though is, no matter what I do, the body always, always, always moves first before the hands. And some people say, well, why would you want your body moving before your hands? It's because if my body is already moving, my hands will always catch up to what my body is doing. But my body can never catch up to what my hands are doing. So it always ensures my body is behind it. So as I'm here, I'm going to push from the root, and I'm going to drop here. And it doesn't matter which hand I hit with. What's going on in my legs never changes. That never changes. And once you get the timing down, and this is key because like I said, I'm kind of exaggerating what I do so you can actually see it. What starts to happen is you start realizing, because our legs are so strong and our feet are so strong, I don't have to get a full drop into that forward leg to get the amount of power I need. In fact, what you really want to do is you want to get it to the point whereas you're decelerating so rapidly and so fast that it's almost like little micro explosions underneath your feet. So as I'm moving back and forth, what's happening is rapidly, decelerating. What I'm also doing is that's what gives me that nice push if I need to change direction. So as I'm going here, what allows me to do that is as each foot hits, it allows me to capture that energy, hit, and then go somewhere else in rapid succession. The other thing I want to point out, and this is the reason why smooth movement is critical, is as I'm moving smoothly, I can actually, because I'm under control, and because my joints are all working off each other, and my muscles are all playing off each other with this polarity that I talk about, I can actually be hitting and moving in different directions. And as long as I stay within the natural range of motion of my body, I can still make it work. I know there are people who say, oh, how can you hit with power moving away? But yet I see guys in boxing all the time fading and popping people in the face and knocking people out. So I don't know what these people are talking about. I've seen Boss Rutan, I love his videos of him hitting people. I've seen Boss Rutan slap people into oblivion with strikes that look like, he's evading, and he'll just hit a guy and just knock him out. But if you think of the motion, he's driving from his legs, rotating his whole body, and he's got this whip-like action, and when he hits people, it's like getting hit with a mace. So people can do it. You can do it. I can do it. Are we going to do it like Boss Rutan? Probably not. We're not Boss Rutan. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to be him to be effective at making these skills work. So as I'm moving smoothly and practicing this, I always start off with is, what is the thing I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? I want to chop. What needs to happen before that? Well, I need to be moving my body in this direction. Well, before my hand hits, what has to happen? Well, my body needs to start moving. Well, before my body starts moving, what do I need to do? I need to have my balance and control over my root of whatever leg I'm going to push off of, because I need to be able to get the body going. From there, I need to be able to drop into that leg, whatever I'm going to drop into, to be able to rapidly decelerate, to capture that plyometric effect of the ground pushing back with equal force, and then timing it with the chop. You can do this kind of thing in this kind of process with pretty much anything, any kind of skill. If I want to kick, I can do the same thing. I want to step off line and feel myself, because what I want to do is that. So what are the things I need to do? Well, I need to have my balance together. I need to be able to control my body. And then as I push horizontally on an angle, I need to be able to rapidly decelerate into this leg. The other thing I'll point out, because I need to say it so I don't forget as usual, is when you see me moving rapidly from position to position, back and forth. I'm doing basically the same kind of thing that a gymnast does, or any running back in football, or any basketball player, or any soccer player does. When you look at a gymnast, I'll use a gymnast as an example. And let's say she's doing, backflips. Everything that she needs to do in her hands and feet has to happen before her hands or feet touch the mat, because that what sets up the next iteration of flip, if that makes sense. In other words, if she's going to flip and land on her hands, in order to maintain the momentum, she has to move in a way that when her hands touch, it sets up her ability to flip and land on her feet. And before her feet land, they have to be set up for her to be able to do another flip to land on her hands. And then of course, when she's going to round off, whatever movement she's doing, everything has to happen in the air before her feet lands in order for her to be able to control her body. That's how that's done. Well, we do it all the time as humans when we walk. Every step we take sets up the next step. In other words, when I'm walking forward and I step here, I'm stepping with the intention to continue to step. You can actually learn to step where, should I place my foot on the ground and I don't like where I'm going, I can change direction. Because if you can learn one thing, as Musashi would say, know one thing, know 10,000 things. So if I can learn one thing, I can learn another. If I learned how to walk and step, then I can also learn how to walk in a manner whereas I step, whereas if I'm not sure, I can change my foot position. Obviously you got to practice it, obviously you got to train it. But when you learn how to move smoothly, what you start realizing is, in any movement you make, there's always this transition where you still have a little time, not much, but a little time, maybe, I don't know, 1/100th or 1/1000th of a second to be able to position your body. So when I'm going back and forth like this, if I want to kick with this leg, but I want to get offline from it, as I push from the root, I'm landing here with the intention of, as soon as I being able to lift that foot and hit. And as you practice these things, you're going to find there is no limitation of how many different skills, how many different techniques you can practice like this. Really basic stuff that you probably, if you've been doing martial arts for any length of time, you can practice and learn how to transition from one movement to the next seamlessly, because when you're learning how to move as smoothly as possible, you're learning how to control your equilibrium as you're doing it, and learning how to transition from one movement to the next, and of course, controlling your mass and your equilibrium and decelerating. The sky is the limit of what you're able to accomplish. One of the things I always talk about in Warrior Flow, and that is, don't ever let anybody tell you what you can't do, right? As long as it's within the laws of physics and human physiology, it can be done. And whatever you can do in your body, you can do in your body. There's more things we can do in our bodies than things we can't do. That's a good thing. So, maybe you can't do a backflip. I mean, I can't do a backflip, but I can sure as heck step offline and hit somebody, or step offline and step whatever I'm going to do. Hopefully this kind of opens up your mind a little bit more, because by understanding kind of the physics and the physiology of how humans really do stuff, it expands everything.